step into the darkness with me on a night that still makes my heart race. My love for ghost hunting started with curiosity, but this time, things got out of control fast. The abandoned house stood silent at midnight, shadows stretching across cracked floors, daring us to enter. At first, excitement surged as my flashlight flickered, and we laughed nervously. But after a chilling noise echoed down the hallway, I realized we weren't alone. What happened next shook everything I thought I knew. The elevator doors creaked open with a metallic groan, revealing the entrance to the basement. If I'm being honest, my stomach dropped the second I saw those chipped concrete steps vanish into the darkness below. Not a comforting welcome. My friend Jess nudged my shoulder and tried to lighten the mood, whispering, "Just think of what we'll catch on camera down there." But nobody laughed. Our group of 5, usually fearless, was suddenly as quiet as the shadows hugging the walls. You know that feeling when you walk into a place and the air just feels wrong? The stairs themselves were narrow, every footstep booming like a drum against the concrete. With each step down, the air got heavier, pressing against my chest, thick with the smell of mildew and something sour, like rotten wood mixed with cold stone. My flashlight danced along the peeling paint and cobwebs, struggling to cut through the dimness. The basement was a maze. I'd studied the floor plans earlier, but those lines on paper didn't feel real now. We turned left, then right, running into dead-end hallways and musty storage rooms where the ceiling pressed down overhead. It felt like the basement was closing in around us. Some parts were so narrow you had to squeeze past crumbling supports or sidestep old furniture draped in dust sheets. Once, I brushed against a dangling chain and it swung forward, clattering against a rusted pipe. The sound shot down the hall, making us all freeze. We whispered, "Did you hear that?" But it could have just been nerves. Or maybe not. Every time the hallway twisted unexpectedly, my knees got a little shakier. At the far end of the central hall was an old breaker box, half pried off the wall. That's where the lights always started to act up. I flicked my beam into the gloom and tried not to notice how the shadows seemed to leap along the walls. One of our team, Marcus, tried making a joke about home improvement gone wrong, but his voice echoed back to us as a muffled whisper, swallowed by the thick silence. It was the kind of quiet that made your ears ache. Even our footsteps sounded wrong. First soft, then impossibly loud as they bounced off the dripping pipes overhead. The floor was sticky in spots and slick in others, making us walk slow and careful, trying not to slip. None of us wanted to split up, but the layout kind of forced it. 2 hallways forked at weird angles, cutting us off from each other. I called out, "Wait up," when I saw Jess's flashlight glimmering through a break in the wall. She called back, but her voice warped, echoing around, so it sounded like someone else was there, whispering behind the boards. "Don't say that," someone hissed when I pointed it out. "It's just the pipes." I tried to focus on my equipment, mostly to distract myself. My EMF meter, always reliable before, kept spiking and dropping for no reason. The basement felt colder the deeper we went, but it wasn't the kind of cold you expect. It was more like pockets of icy air would sneak up out of nowhere. I'd walk right into a spot that felt 10 degrees colder than the rest of the hall, and each time chill bumps would prickle up my arms. More than once, Jess and Marcus started arguing quietly about which way was back out. I tried to reassure the team, "We're fine, guys. We just need to stick together." But inside, I didn't feel fine at all. My chest was tight, my mouth dry. In one corner of the basement was a door so old it barely hung on its hinges. It sagged, open a few inches, and behind it, the darkness looked more solid than air. I aimed my light through the gap, catching a glint of something metallic on the floor, and what looked like an old boot sticking out from a pile of rags. Marcus said, "Don't waste your time in there," but the others seemed drawn to it anyway. Every now and then, we'd hear something. Clunks, distant scuffs that couldn't have been us. We'd all freeze, counting heads, trying to figure out who had moved and who hadn't. For a minute, I was sure I saw a shadow at the end of the hall, like someone ducking behind a pillar, just out of view. "Did you see that?" I whispered. Nobody did, but I felt eyes watching. The sense of isolation was stronger than ever. Even with people all around, the basement made me feel completely alone. Somewhere above, water dripped down from an unseen leak, every drop echoing sharp and cold. I wiped my forehead, realized it was beading with sweat, but I shivered, goosebumps racing up both arms. It's funny how your senses change in a place like this. Every little sound becomes the most important thing in the world. I started counting the flickers of my flashlight, trying to measure the passage of time. It felt like we'd only been down there for minutes, but we kept looping the same halls. At one point, I reached out to steady myself, and my fingers scraped brick damp with condensation. The scent of mold was so thick it left a taste in my mouth. Jess suddenly gasped, nearly dropping her recorder. "It's freezing," she whispered, her breath puffing out, clouding the light in the air. We all stopped. I looked at my own arms, goosebumps. Again. My teeth started to chatter. We panned our flashlights along the floor, watching the light turn blue and white in the thick air. I said, "Let's stay calm, just mark this spot." But everyone knew it wasn't just nerves. There was something strange, some force hanging heavy and cold, making us question if we should keep going. A few more paces, and the architecture got weird. A stretch of hallway narrowed so sharply, we had to go single file, squeezing sideways. Something shifted in the darkness ahead, like a curtain fluttering in a wind that shouldn't exist. All of us stopped, waiting for some sign, but nothing happened. The whole time, we kept hearing echoing footsteps. Not just our own, not in the right rhythm, but like someone trailing just behind or around the next corner. It was enough to make everyone go silent again. The deeper we went, the more the lights seemed to flicker and fade. Bulbs sputtered and hummed, sometimes glaring white, sometimes dying out completely for a second and plunging us into thick gloom. By now, our nerves were frayed. I heard soft sniffles, someone trying to keep it together. I focused on the details, the way the dust seemed to float in the flashlight beams, the soft crunch of gravel underfoot, the steady drip from somewhere overhead. For a split second, the lights flickered out all at once, throwing us into total blackness. I could hear our breathing, short, sharp, almost panicked. Marcus swore under his breath, and Jess's voice cracked as she whispered, "Turn your light on, turn it on." My hands shook so badly I almost dropped my flashlight. But then, suddenly, the bulbs flared to life again. For just a heartbeat in that darkness, it felt like anything could have been standing right beside us. Maybe something was. The relief when the light snapped back was so real, we all just stood, breathless, hearts pounding, flashlights darting everywhere. These moments made each of us question if we'd imagined it all, or if something in the basement really was watching. And still, the sense of being watched wouldn't leave. My heart thudded every time my light picked up something new. A broken picture frame, an old shoe, a cracked mirror reflecting only pieces of us. The maze of the basement held us tight, each twist in the hallway more confusing than the last. We hadn't realized it yet, but we'd already gone far past the point of turning back. But that wasn't even the strangest part. The air was so heavy now it felt like you could slice it with a knife. Every step we took sounded 10 times louder in the crowded silence. I glanced at the clock on my phone. Time seemed to be crawling. That's when it happened. Without warning, a cold draft swept along the corridor, icy enough to make us all shiver. We looked at each other, mouths open but nobody saying a word. My own flashlight started to flicker, sputtering between bright white and a dying yellow, even though I'd changed the batteries just minutes earlier. My hands were shaking so bad I tried to steady the light. "Hold up, did you feel that?" Jess's voice wobbled, her recorder shaking in her grip. The beam from her flashlight slid frantically over the walls. The draft didn't feel natural. It seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere, all at once. Suddenly, a sharp clatter exploded from the upstairs hallway. It sounded like something metallic being tossed onto the wooden floor, impossibly loud, echoing down to where we stood. It wasn't the pipes, it wasn't the house settling. It was a noise that demanded attention, the kind of sound that grabs you by the gut. Every muscle in my body tensed. The others froze. Our group huddled close. Marcus whispered, "Was that one of us?" But we all knew it wasn't. Even the bravest of us, Jason, who always boasted that nothing scared him, went pale, his eyes darting from the ceiling to the dark corners. Jess clamped a hand over her mouth, and I could hear the rasp of her breathing. A few seconds passed, seconds that felt like hours. My heart was pounding, so loud I thought everyone could hear it. Then, from behind the broken banister at the top of the ruined staircase, a figure appeared. It was just a shadow at first, a faint outline swaying in the wavering light. No details, no features, just human-shaped darkness, moving as if it was breathing with us. Jason dropped his camera. It hit the ground with a thunk that sounded like a gunshot. Everyone jumped. My skin prickled with fear. My mind screamed, "It's not real. It can't be real." Jess's voice was barely a whisper, shaking as she mouthed, "Did you see that?" "No way," I breathed. But I couldn't look away. The figure didn't move like a person, it kind of floated, gliding to the base of the stairs, never quite touching the floor. The atmosphere turned icy, and I swear I could see my own breath. Marcus tried to step back, but he tripped over some old boards. He hit the ground hard, and his shout echoed off the walls. The shadow jerked in response, flickering in and out of the lamp's failing glow. My teammate Lisa reached for my hand, her grip like a vice. "Don't move," she whispered, her voice raw with terror. But I couldn't have moved if I wanted to. We stared, paralyzed. The shadow didn't have a face, but it had presence, a kind of static in the air, making every hair on my body stand up. It hovered for a moment, then seemed to slide out of sight behind the staircase. As soon as it vanished, something shifted in the room. The temperature shot up, but only for a second. All this happened in silence, except for the blood roaring in my ears. Then the house seemed to come alive. Somewhere in the distance, a door slammed. Another metallic clang rang out. The lights overhead blinked in and out. We stood there, not sure what was real and what was fear. Jason broke first. "Nope, I'm done," he muttered, backing away while never taking his eyes off the spot where the shadow disappeared. I tried to talk, wanted to say something brave or rational. All that came out was a nervous laugh that sounded more like a sob. My heart thudded in my chest, my breath coming in short, tight gasps. "Is everyone okay?" I finally managed. Jess nodded, but her face was pure panic. Lisa shook her head, eyes wide. Marcus got up, dusted off his pants, but couldn't stop glancing over his shoulder. We all crowded together for a moment, unsure what to do. "Should we leave?" Lisa asked. Nobody answered her. The sense of fear was so raw, so real, you could taste it. We waited, eyes darting left and right, straining for another sign, footsteps, breathing, anything. Instead, the house seemed to hold its breath. Far off, another shuffling noise started, soft at first, then growing louder as if someone, or something, was pacing in the hall above us. We all whispered together, worry bubbling through our words. "Did you get that on camera? Was it just a trick of the light?" But deep down, we all knew what we'd seen. The chill in my spine wouldn't go away. Every sound, every squeak or rattle, sent us spinning around, flashlights shaking across the walls. The panic was building. No one wanted to say it out loud, but everyone was thinking the same thing: we needed to get out of the basement, and fast. And then, just when it seemed like the fear couldn't get any worse, the quiet exploded into chaos again. This time, the noise wasn't distant, it was right behind us. A violent crash of something heavy landing against metal. We jumped, nearly bolting for the exit. That's when I realized my hands were numb, clammy with sweat. I could barely hold onto my flashlight, and my ears were ringing with adrenaline. In the chaos, Lisa grabbed my sleeve. "We have to go now." Her voice shook. I nodded. I tried to marshal everyone together, forcing myself to sound steady. Stick together. Don't split up. But inside, all I wanted was to bolt and never look back. My mind kept replaying the sight of that shadow. The way it glided, the emptiness where a face should be. Even now, there's a part of me that wonders what it wanted, or whether it even noticed us. But then the sounds started again. Hard, angry knocks from upstairs. That was enough to snap us back into action. Nobody dared look back as we started moving again, steps quick and clumsy. The basement had gone from claustrophobic to suffocating, all the walls pushing in, every sound now a possible threat. I knew. Right then, we'd remember that shadow for the rest of our lives. It's strange, but when you're in a place like that, your senses become supercharged. I became hyper-aware of every sensation. The gritty chill of dust under my shoes, the tangy metallic smell lingering in the air, the way the old floorboards moaned and creaked under our feet. Even the smallest brush of air against my neck made me jump. Once, as we hurried down the hall, my backpack brushed the wall and I nearly screamed, convinced for a split second it was someone, or something, reaching out from the darkness. I thought about all the ghost stories I'd ever heard, how people always said you'd just know when something wasn't right. That night, I got it. Standing with my friends, our breaths fogging, flashlights casting chaotic patterns over the peeling wallpaper, I felt that bone-deep certainty that we weren't alone. Jess clung to her audio recorder, whispering, "Is it still here? Is it following us?" Lisa just kept shaking her head, almost like she was trying to send the thought away. The adrenaline made my legs feel shaky, almost floaty, but we kept moving, a tight knot of bodies pressed together, inching toward the stairs that might mean safety. Above us, the noises continued, slow dragging footsteps, then a quick hard tap, as if someone was tapping out a warning on an old radiator. Marcus said, "That sound, it's like it doesn't want us to go." For a heartbeat, I almost expected another shadow to appear, blocking the door. My mind flashed with images of all the stories we'd read about this place. Ghostly sightings, people chased out by things they couldn't see. "Keep your lights steady," I whispered, my voice barely holding together. "We make it to the top of the stairs and we leave." Agreed? No one argued. We stared at the staircase, half expecting it to collapse or vanish. That distance to the top, maybe just 20 feet, felt endless. Our breath was loud and uneven, like we'd run a mile. I forced myself not to look back. I'd never felt so exposed or so desperate to be anywhere else in my life. But even with the danger pressing in, a small part of me felt torn. I couldn't help wonder if we were leaving too soon, running from real answers. What would have happened if we'd stood our ground, stared into that shadow, and demanded it show itself? My rational mind screamed no, but my heart, the part that got us into ghost hunting in the first place, ached for one more sign. Just as I put my foot on the first step, something behind us whispered. I know now, it could have just been the wind or a trick of the echo. But in that moment, it was the most chilling sound of all. A shape in the darkness, speaking our names, promising this wasn't the end of the story. And that's exactly where everything changed. So what happened at the top of those stairs? The real nightmare was only just beginning. When survival instincts kick in, it happens like a switch. One moment, the fear was cold and paralyzing. And the next, adrenaline slammed into me so hard it almost dropped me to my knees. Everything else faded, except the tunnel vision of getting out. My heart was pounding so loud it filled my whole head. The only thing that mattered was the door at the top of the stairs. Jess's voice cracked as she shouted, "Go! Move!" And the group surged forward. I was right behind Marcus, my flashlight bouncing in my shaking grip. Our footsteps thundered up the narrow hallway, echoing off the brick like a drumline. Every shadow leaped and twisted. Each turn felt wrong, like the layout was shifting to keep us trapped. We dodged around slick patches on the ground and stumbled over bits of busted furniture, tables, plastic chairs, broken boxes, each one a new obstacle. I nearly tripped on a splintered wooden beam, my hand catching myself against cold, rough stone. The sting in my palm just made me move faster. Sweat poured down my back, even as goosebumps shivered up my arms. It was the weirdest thing. So hot on the inside, so cold on the outside. My hands were so slick, I nearly dropped my phone. Somewhere behind, Jason shouted, "Wait up." But none of us could slow down. Lisa ran close beside me, gripping my jacket so tight her knuckles were white. She kept repeating, keep moving, like a lifeline. My mouth was dry as paper, breathing sharp and ragged. All I could really think about was how desperate I was to see daylight. The basement seemed endless. Every corridor looked the same in the weak light. At one point, we hit a dead end. Marcus punched the wall in panic, shouting, "Not this way." That moment, everyone screaming, the walls closing in, feels like it lasted an hour, but it was probably just seconds. I turned, spotting a gap behind an old supply locker. This way, I think. We shuffled through, cramming between boxes and broom handles, glass crunching under each step. The panic was contagious. I looked back for a split second. Big mistake. The flashlight caught the far wall. There, for just a flash, I saw the outline of something that shouldn't have been there. Maybe it was just a trick of the light, but I'll never know for sure. It made me push everyone faster. Jess tripped over her own feet, falling hard on her knees. She yelped, but got right back up. Her hands were shaking so badly she dropped her recorder, the tape spun wildly, capturing only chaos. Marcus doubled back to grab her arm, half carrying her as we sprinted on. Our boots slapped the floor in uneven rhythm, sending hollow sounds ricocheting into the unknown. Lisa's breath came in stuttering pants, and she kept glancing over her shoulder, eyes wide and wild. The worst moment? When the last bulb overhead sputtered out. For a split second, we were swallowed by pure black. Not a single scrap of light anywhere. Someone screamed. A thin, sharp sound that I think was me. "Don't stop," Marcus barked. I fumbled for my phone, desperate for even the tiny screen glow. When we hit the stairs, the metal underfoot hit back with a bone-deep clang. We scrambled up, stumbling, hands scraping against the peeling paint and gritty railings. I lost count of how many times I nearly fell or tripped over someone's outstretched foot. The air grew thinner, wetter, until every breath burned. At the top, the door wouldn't budge at first. Panic surged. What if we were trapped? Someone stomped and pushed together, and with a crack like thunder, it finally flew open. Light, real, natural, beautiful light, poured in. Like a dam breaking, everyone shoved out onto the landing, blinking hard. Outside the basement, we all collapsed against the cool wall, sucking air and shaking. I realized tears were running down my cheeks, but I didn't care who saw. Jess sat down hard, dropped her head into her hands, and tried to steady her breathing. Marcus hunched over, hands on knees, sweat dripping off his face. Lisa leaned against the brick and laughed. A harsh, broken sound, half relief, half leftover fear. But it wasn't over. Not really. For several heartbeats, nobody said a word. All you could hear was the roar of our own blood in our ears, and the clatter of gear hitting the ground. Time dilated, stretching each second out. Jason sat with his back to the wall, legs splayed, looking down at his trembling hands like he didn't recognize them. "Dude, I thought we weren't gonna make it," he muttered, his voice no louder than a whisper. I nodded, still feeling the phantom thud of my heartbeat in my throat. I remember staring down at my sneakers, noticing for the first time they were caked in dust, and something dark I hoped was just mud. That basement never looked so menacing as it did from the outside. The doorway, wide open, gaping like the mouth of some huge beast we'd barely escaped. Jess's hair was tangled, and her glasses were crooked. She started worrying over the tape recorder, mumbling to herself. I had it right here. I hit record. But did it get anything? For a moment, there was a crackle from the speaker, then nothing but static and our frantic gasps. Lisa wiped her face with shaky hands. "This is like that story Uncle Charlie told, remember? About the haunted mine?" She said, trying to smile, but her lips couldn't stop quivering. Instead of calming us, the joke just reminded everyone of how close we'd come to something unknown. Even Marcus, who never let on that he was scared, looked shaken. He turned his head, avoiding our eyes, and quietly checked his flashlight. It still didn't work. I leaned my head back, shutting my eyes for a second. Images flickered behind my eyelids, the hallway twisting, the shadow on the wall, Jess's scream piercing the dark. Even out in the open, safe, everything still felt on edge. My skin prickled, hyper-aware of every little noise. The whisper of wind through weeds, the scrape of someone's shoe, the faraway howl of a siren. The realization hit me, this would stick with us, replaying every time we closed our eyes or heard a creak in the dark. The silence that followed was thick. No one wanted to go back in. Not even Marcus, who usually teased us for being afraid of the dark. For a few minutes, we just sat and stared, listening to our own ragged breaths. My hands wouldn't stop shaking, and my mind wouldn't stop replaying the shadow at the stairs, the crash behind us, the way the basement seemed to twist and close in. Eventually, we gathered our things, still barely breathing normal. Each of us double and triple checked our pockets. One glove missing, a bottle cap we never saw before, batteries drained. Lisa whispered, half joking, "I feel like something's following us." And everyone went quiet, because deep down, it didn't feel impossible. It wasn't just fear of the unknown, it was fear of losing control, of crossing a line that couldn't be uncrossed. We knew, deep down, that something in that basement had noticed us and wasn't happy about it. Eventually, we gathered our stuff and tried to act normal. But adrenaline takes longer to wear off than you'd think. My knees wobbled, and more than once I felt like I'd forgotten how to breathe. Everyone checked their gear. 3 dead batteries, a recorder that only picked up static, someone's hat missing entirely. Little signs that all screamed, "You just barely made it out." The relief of surviving was real, but so was the dread that we'd left something unfinished, or that the basement would call us back. We stumbled outside, finally. The night air was cold, but nothing like the chill inside that building. But as we slumped against the side of the building, exhausted and drained, the question came up, what exactly went wrong in there? And more importantly, what if we didn't escape everything we thought we did? Stick around, because next, we're sorting through the evidence. Could the answers be hiding in the sounds we captured, or in what's mysteriously missing? It's easy to look back and see where everything went sideways, but in the moment, you never realize just how small warnings can turn into big mistakes. Sitting there after the chaos, with sweat drying on my forehead and my breath still shaky, I started going over every step that led us into that storm of fear. There were signs, tiny flashing signals we brushed off, thinking we were prepared. The first thing I keep replaying is the feeling in the air. Early in the night, I'd noticed those weird cold spots. You'd be walking and suddenly it was 10 degrees colder, but only in one stretch of hallway. I joked, maybe it's the ghost saying hello, and everyone chuckled, brushing it off. We should have checked right then, regrouped, doubled back, and checked for drafts or ways the cold could be sneaking in. But when you're caught up in excitement, it's easy to forget safety and just chase the thrill. The flickering lights came next. At first, it was almost a running joke. Whose flashlight would die first? But it wasn't just one light. Every bulb, every battery-powered gadget seemed to struggle, like something in the basement was draining power. That's classic warning sign number 2. When our walkie-talkies started picking up static mixed with faint voices none of us could understand, we laughed it off, chalked it up to bad batteries. We didn't realize until later how much our technology had completely failed us down there. I remember the creaks and groans of the building echoing down the halls, mixing with our nervous laughter and whispers. At one point, Jess stopped and shivered, rubbing her arms. She said, "You guys feel that? Like, not just cold, but heavy?" We all shrugged, determined not to let our nerves get the best of us. I can still hear the way her voice trembled, even though she tried to sound brave. Looking back, I wish I'd listened more to those little comments. Not just the equipment, but the way everyone around me was feeling. One of the worst moments, And the thing that haunts me most was when we got separated at that forked hallway. Instead of stopping and regrouping, we tried to navigate the maze anyway, just calling out to one another. I remember thinking, we'll be fine as long as we can hear each other, never stopping to think what would happen if our voices got lost or twisted by the echoing halls. Jess kept calling, "Marcus, where'd you go?" While Marcus shouted back, but his words sounded miles away, distorted and strange. It all started feeling less like a ghost hunt and more like being trapped in some nightmare funhouse. If anything had happened in that moment, help would have been almost impossible. Looking back, the biggest mistake was not sticking to our emergency plan. We always said, if things get weird, if anything feels dangerous or unknown, we call in for backup. That's what we practiced. Only, by the time things felt truly wrong, panic had already taken the wheel. None of us stopped to reach for the backup phone or even check how to get outside fastest. If communication had been tighter, if we'd kept checking in every few minutes, if we'd moved as one unit, if someone had had an eye on the exits at all times, it could have gone differently. And it's not just about the ghosts, it's about any emergency. We never thought about someone twisting an ankle in the dark, or what we'd do if someone fainted from fear. When you're exploring places with crumbling floors and broken stairs, that stuff is just as dangerous as any haunting. Now, after that night, we always make sure to have a backup meeting spot in case we ever get split up again. The same goes for equipment. We skipped the gear check because we were in a hurry, and it came back to bite us hard. Dead batteries, failing lights, a useless map which someone left upstairs on a windowsill. During the chaos, it all added up. Marcus even joked later, we should have brought breadcrumbs. But it wasn't funny at the time. Gear is your lifeline in places where the unknown is around every corner. I can still picture Jess holding her flashlight like a lifeline, smacking it against her palm when the beam started to fade. "Don't die on me now," she whispered, more to herself than anyone. The shadows in the corners just seemed darker, thicker, pressing in the less light we had. It's a helpless feeling, fumbling for extra batteries with shaking hands, dropping them on the dusty floor, praying they're not all dead too. There's another thing I didn't appreciate until later, how fear can shut down your common sense. Once the adrenaline hit and our hearts started racing, we moved like a herd of deer. No plan, no idea where we were actually going, more focused on running than thinking. I know, now, that extreme fear can mess with your memory. For a few days after, every detail felt foggy and out of order. Jess said, "It's like all my thoughts scrambled at once." Since then, I see ghost hunting really differently. I understand why people who chase the unknown sometimes make reckless choices, but the real danger is ignoring the hints that things are going sideways. If the air turns cold and your gear stops working, it's time to reevaluate, leave, call for help, or both. No ghost sighting is worth risking real harm. I realize, too, how easy it is for ego to get in the way. When the team started splitting up, I should have called everyone to regroup, but I thought, we don't want to look silly or scared. That was another mistake. Courage isn't never being scared. It's about knowing when to act smart, even if it means admitting you need a timeout. After that night, we started talking a lot more before heading into new places. We don't just check gear, we check in with each other. Jess will ask, "Everyone feel okay? Anyone got cold feet? Literally or not?" And Marcus, who used to be the skeptic, actually walks around testing the walkies and lights before we even open the front door. It became clear, planning and teamwork aren't a joke when the stakes are high. The experience left a mark, on all of us. Marcus has stopped teasing about being fearless in the dark. Jess checks every battery twice now. Me? I've started preparing 3 different exit plans every time I visit a haunted spot. The fear lingers, but the lesson stings more. The unknown can always surprise you, but you have to respect it if you want to stay safe. There's still something I can't shake. Every so often when it's quiet and the lights flicker, I wonder, what if we hadn't ignored those early warnings? Would we have seen something even scarier? I guess it's something I'll never know, but I do know now to never make the same mistake again. Still, that night taught me, painfully, that planning, communication, and quick action can be the only thing that stands between a scary encounter and a truly dangerous one. The lesson was rough, but it's made all the difference since. But even after all of that, some questions don't have answers. Why did that shadow pick us? Was it all in our heads? Or was something really waiting down there in the dark? And that's what keeps me searching for the truth, even after all the fear. But here's the part most people don't realize. When the dust settles, it isn't just the ghosts that stick with you. It's your own doubts and the urge to make things right next time. And in the next part, I'll share how these lessons totally change the way I explore haunted places and how you can avoid repeating our mistakes. If you're still here after all that, maybe you're like me. You love a good scare, but you want to get home in one piece too. So, before you go chasing shadows or listening for things that go bump in the night, let me share what I've learned the hard way. The thrill is real, but so are the risks. A smart ghost hunter always has a plan, and tonight, that's the gift I want to give you. First, always start with research. Before you pack a single piece of gear or step inside a building, find out everything you can about the place. Look up its history, who lived there, what happened there, even local legends or news reports. Sometimes old buildings have hidden dangers, like weak floors or hidden drop-offs, and those can be every bit as scary as any ghost. See if anyone else has been there, and learn from their stories. The more you know, the better you can spot trouble before it finds you. Second, bring the right gear. 2 good flashlights and fresh batteries for each are a must. If you're in a big group, make sure everyone has some kind of light. Don't forget a first aid kit, just in case someone scrapes a knee or worse. It sounds boring, but small injuries get worse in the dark. Wear good shoes, nothing slippery or open-toed. Gloves are smart for moving rubble, and bring a fully charged phone. I like to stash a backup power bank in my backpack just in case. Never ever hunt alone. I can't stress this enough. Always bring a buddy, or even better, a group. Not only does it make for better stories, but if someone falls or gets hurt, help is right there. Pick someone you can trust. With a cool head when things go sideways, trust me, you'll be glad when the weirdness starts. Always agree on check-in points and stick together, especially when things get creepy. If you must split off for any reason, keep in constant contact and set a timer to regroup. No legend is worth risking someone getting lost or trapped alone. Pay attention to your surroundings, all of them. If it's private property, get permission. Trespassing not only gets you into legal trouble, but it's just plain disrespectful to the people who own the space and those whose stories you're trying to uncover. If you ever feel unsafe, like if the structure seems unstable, or if something just feels wrong, leave. Ghosts are one thing. A collapsing ceiling or a wild animal in a dark corner is something else entirely. Set up a safety plan before you start. Decide how you'll exit if things get dangerous, and identify good spots to regroup if you're separated. Go over your emergency contact info. Let someone outside your team know where you'll be, when you'll start, and when you expect to be done. This is even more important if the location's remote or cell service is bad. Simple steps, but if things get weird, you'll be way ahead. Document everything, but always be ethical. Take photos, record audio, jot down notes, but respect the location and its history. Don't break or take anything, and don't try to fake anything you see. Real ghost hunting is about chasing truth, not just a good video. If you capture something amazing, great. But even if it all ends up being explainable, that's still an adventure worth sharing. If equipment starts failing, if the group starts to panic, or if anything just feels too intense, call it. Nothing worth seeing in the dark is worth risking your friends, your safety, or your peace of mind. After every hunt, take time to process. Talk as a group about what went right, what you'd do differently, and what you learned. Don't push yourself to go back before you're ready. Be kind to yourself. Fear can leave a mark, even if you think you're tough. So, next time the urge for adventure comes, remember, research, gear up, bring friends, stay alert, plan for the worst, and treat every site and each other with respect. That's how you chase ghosts and live to tell the tale. And yet, after everything, I can't shake the feeling there's always something out there, just beyond the reach of your flashlight. Maybe it's a ghost. Maybe it's just your own fears. But, honestly, isn't that why we keep searching?